Once the doors were fully opened, several torches lit up inside the tower, as if leading the way for the two of them. "You have entered a vampire tomb. Quest, explore the tower is now in progress." Quinn thought, "System, did you know what this was?" "I had my guesses, but I couldn't be so sure," the system replied. "These are two things I should warn you about before you proceed. First, a vampire tomb doesn't necessarily mean a vampire is dead. A vampire can choose to go into eternal slumber, which is similar to death but not the same. Eternal slumber means a vampire has chosen to go to sleep forever themselves. It's a permanent state, and there is only one way to be woken up from it: by consuming the blood of someone of the same family. My guess is two things. Either the vampire was a powerful one, and his magic was so great he was able to convince the king-tier beast to act as a guard. To keep it under its control for so long, it handed the blood crystal which you obtained after defeating the beast. My second guess would be that after the beast found the blood crystal, it was compelled to this area. Something was telling it that there was something powerful inside, and it didn't know how to use it. At the same time, it couldn't leave this place due to its curiosity of power." Excited by this prospect, he started to jog after Fex, who had gone quite a way ahead. After they both followed the torches down the path, it eventually led them to a large staircase leading upward. The two of them powered through the many stairs and didn't feel very tired. However, they did feel like the stairs would go on forever and were wondering when they would end. Finally, the stairs had leveled out onto a platform, and another large door could be seen. It was the same size as the one at the entrance, only this one didn't have a strange lock-like mechanism. Up ahead after the platform were even more stairs leading up, suggesting they hadn't reached the top yet. With a strong push, the doors opened. Torches around the room suddenly lit up. It was a fairly large square room, but at the same time it was completely bare. There was nothing inside the room apart from 5 podiums in the center of the room. Each podium had an item on it. They were pieces of armor: a chest piece, a leg piece, an arm piece, and a helmet. Lastly, on the final podium was a ring. "This is ancient old vampire combat armor. Maybe you can wear this," Fex said as he picked up the ring of the podium. In an instant, the room felt like it was starting to shake. "What did you do?" Quinn complained. A strange circular cylinder-like shape lifted from the podium and covered each of the items. The cylinder went all the way up to the ceiling of the room they were in. Once the cylinders were formed, the vibration stopped, and it didn't seem like anything else was going to happen. Seeing what had happened, Quinn could only assume the other items were locked away once Fex had picked up the ring. Perhaps the same thing would have happened after touching any of the items. Maybe the vampire who slept here was giving them a choice, a reward for discovering the place, but rather than give them everything, he gifted them a single piece of his treasure. "Here," Fex said, as he threw the ring over to Quinn. He caught the ring in the air and took a look at it. "Inspect. A king-tier blocking ring. When used on a vampire, it will completely block the effects of sunlight as long as the ring is worn." With this ring, the one weakness Quinn possessed had disappeared. A huge smile went over his face as he quickly placed the ring on. When Logan turned back to look down the tunnel from where they came from, he had saw that no one had followed them. Even with Peter on his shoulder, he never slowed down. He kept running down the tunnel until they eventually reached an open space that had a lot of different paths and tunnels for them to choose from. It was similar to one of the areas where they had just come from. "Let go of me!" Peter shouted, with his eyes now fully red and glowing in the dark. Logan felt the weight on his shoulder was about to shift. He could tell that something was up, and immediately threw Peter off his shoulder, slamming him onto the ground. Peter lifted his head and got a glimpse of Logan, who now had his blaster pointed toward him. "You're still in there, right, Peter?" said Logan. But Peter suddenly started to seize. His body furiously shook as he thrashed around on the floor. Looking for some kind of solution, Logan picked out and held out his altered hand scanner. If it just worked, then he would be able to scan the tunnels and find out where the other deceased students were located. Instead of walking through blindly and playing their chances, they would at least have some benchmark as to where they should go. But for some reason, ever since coming down underground, the scanner was useless. "Why won't you work?" Logan said, and Peter was now standing in front of him with his head facing down towards the ground. It was unknown whether he had recovered his sanity or if he had already been taken over by his hunger and primal urges. After Quinn and Fex realized that there was nothing the two of them could do to retrieve their items, they decided to leave the room. On the final platform, there was another large, arch-shaped double door like the one before. It also had no lock, and all the two needed to do was push it open with their two hands. Just like every room they had entered before, the lights started to light up one by one, revealing what the room looked like. From the door to the center room was a large red carpet. It reached the center, where there was a very large circle on the ground. Past this was a red carpet on the other end of the circle, which continued forward until it eventually reached a large chair. Looking at the large chair, or throne, it looked like only a person of significance would be allowed to sit in such a place. That was when Quinn spotted something while looking at the throne, but just behind the chair, a little bit above, it looked like a clear glass pane, and inside was a large sword-like weapon. The sword didn't look regular, even though it was locked away behind a glass casing. It seemed to have several black chains wrapped around it, from the hilt up to the tip of the blade. While looking at the blade closer, he could tell it was a beast blade rather than just a regular sword. The handguard seemed to be quite scaly and rocky. It was red and had a pattern that matched the armor they had seen earlier. Between the handguard and the bladed part was a red gem. It looked very similar to the crystal that Quinn had obtained after defeating the king-tier beast. From the crystal, inside the sword, a single red line ran up the blade until the tip, placing his clawed gauntlet fingertips on the glass pane covering it. He started to use all his strength, hoping to make a scratch or an indentation. Just like with all of the materials they had discovered before in the tower, it was almost unbreakable for him. He took a step back, and once again the room seemed to slightly vibrate. In front of the sword, a podium started to rise. The vibration stopped in the room, and so did the podium. On top, there was a diamond-shaped hole. As he gently ran his fingers over the top of the podium, another message appeared. "Would you like to insert your blood crystal? Once inserted, the blood crystal may not be removed. Yes? No?" "What exactly can a blood crystal be used for?" Quinn asked the system in his head. The system said, "The blood crystal can be used as a beast crystal. They are used to either create armor or weapons. The unique thing about a blood weapon is that it can evolve and grow stronger. However, depending on the crystal used, there is a limit to its growth and also its starting point. What you have right now in your hand is the lowest tier of blood crystals." He looked at the weapon behind the glass case once again, and it was like nothing he had seen before. "Is that a blood weapon?" "Yes," the system replied. "Small blood crystal has been inserted." The room started to shake slightly once again, and the podium, along with the crystal, started to sink into the ground slowly. "Quest explore the tower complete." After standing there for a few moments, he quickly realized that nothing was happening. The glass covering the sword was still there. Somewhere else, underground at the same time, Logan was backing steadily away, holding out his blaster at Peter. He hadn't made any moves yet, but he could see his body slowly breathing in and out, not moving a step from his position. Using one of his hands, he picked up the scanner and immediately turned it on. For some reason, the scanner was online. After quickly scanning the tunnels around them, Logan found what he was looking for. In one of the tunnels to his right, not too far from here, were the bodies of some students who had met an unfortunate end after falling from above. "Yes, Peter, I think I can solve your problem." In Logan's excitement, he had placed both eyes on the scan only for a brief second. When he looked up, Peter was no longer standing where he was directly in front of him. Back in the strange tower, Quinn realized what was the change he was feeling. After inserting the blood crystal into the podium, it seemed like whatever was blocking out his senses before was no longer there. He could now clearly sense Peter. With this, shock had entered his heart. Sensing Peter now, he could feel a mix of emotions and feelings rush over his mind and body. "Damn it! Is this because of the fight from before?" Quinn said. "We have to hurry and get back to the others." A process had begun when the blood crystal was inserted into the podium and went back into the floor. The center circle started to rise from the floor, and it finally stopped when it reached a height a little larger than an average human. A few seconds later, the metal circle cylinder dropped quickly back down to the ground, and left in its place was a human figure. It was a handsome male figure with pale white skin and dark black hair that seemed to go all the way down to the person's waist. Slowly, his eyes opened and a red glow could be seen. "I wonder how long I've been asleep," the man said. Holding out his hand with his hand open, he faced it towards the weapon behind the glass. A strange force compelled it towards the man, and the weapon smashed through the glass and into the man's hand. "Let's see if anything has changed in the outside world," the man said.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.